Hey, welcome back to the Glycogen Cycling channel. So today we are going to do a full review on the Giant TCR Advanced Pro 1. So because this is a full review, it's going to be a slightly longer video, but if you want to see a shorter video where I gave my initial impressions of this bike, less than 5 minutes, go check it out up there in the top right corner. The link will also be in the description. It's a quick video going over this bike. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the power meter, the wheels, why I didn't go with disc brakes. We're gonna talk about the frame and why I didn't go with the Aero Propel, and what I think of the TCR overall. And the last thing we're going to talk about is a miscellaneous category where we talk about the parts I switched out from this bike and also go over the components. So let's go inside and talk about this bike. So the first thing I want to talk about is Giant's proprietary power meter, which is called the Power Pro. And they put this on some of their road bikes. A lot of companies are doing this now, are putting power meters on road bikes stock. And this is what really actually intrigued me about this bike and actually pushed me over the edge to actually buy it, is it comes with a power meter. But I will be completely transparent and say this is the second one I have had, because the first one was actually giving me some issues. The power was cutting out sometimes, reading low, and then later on in the ride it would read normal. So it wasn't being consistent at all, and because of that, I took it back to the shop and said, hey, this isn't really working that well. And they were super cool about it, called up the rep, and within like a week or two I had a brand new power meter. I'm still having some issue with the power balance on this one. So my left side is reading about 3% high. So it's every ride I do, it says 53% and my left says 47. And because of this, it almost seems like a software issue, because the other power meter was also doing the same thing. And my cork always reads my right side about 1% higher. So on my cork, I'm about 51% on my right and 49 on my left. So I know it's not 53% on the left on the Power Pro. It's just not correct. So I'm hoping this is a software issue that they're going to fix. This is a new power meter for 2020 that they are putting on their bikes. So hopefully within a couple months they fix that issue and it just fixed with a software update. But other than that, the power meter is reading accurate, which I'm super happy about. The next thing I want to talk about is the charging. So to charge it, it comes with this proprietary cable, and it's like two magnets that you have to stick on the left side and the right side, because this is a dual-sided power meter. What that means is it records power on both sides of your legs. So you're getting probably the most accurate reading. And you have to stick these magnets. It's kind of tricky. You can see my head in the shot to get it lined up properly. But there's two little magnet areas, both on the left side crank arm and around the spider on the right side, the drive side. And once you get it lined up, you just plug it in and charge it up. So the difference between this and the cork is the cork has one of those CR2032 batteries, those little coin batteries that are like ridiculously expensive for whatever reason. And the cork, you just pop one of those in. It lasts about 6 to 8 months, depending on how much you ride. And then you just pop a new one in and you're good to go. This one, you actually have to plug it into the wall and recharge it, which it charges really quick. I don't think it's ever been more than an hour that I've charged it. And it's supposed to last about 1,500 or so miles. So my concern with this type of system is you never I'm concerned about the battery life in, 2 or 3 years from now. Everyone who's watching this probably has a smartphone, and after, 2 or 3 years, the battery life doesn't last as long as it did when you first got the phone. So I really want to know 3 years from now, is this going to last, a week? Is it going to last a ride? That's my main concern. So I'll follow up maybe 2 years from now and see if I'm still riding this bike or this power meter, even if it's still worthwhile and still works, or if I have to charge it basically every ride. So that's one concern and one thing to take into consideration. It's really nice that you can just recharge it and just always have a fresh, basically, battery. But if you go to a race, you forgot to charge it, you're kind of out of luck. You can't just pop a new battery in real quick. So pros and cons to having that. But that being said, that's pretty much all about the power meter. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the wheels. So these are Giant's SLR1 wheels. I know I said in the previous video that these wheels aren't anything special, which I would still stand behind, but I'd say they are 50 to 80% better than all the other stock wheels that companies put on their bikes. These wheels are pretty stiff. I have the brake pads within 5 millimeters of the rim, and I never have a problem with it touching, even when I'm sprinting hard. So they're pretty stiff. They roll super well. Overall, really happy with them, and you can definitely win a race on these wheels for sure. So if you want to just have a bike that is ready to go, ready to win a race, this is the bike you should probably get. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that they are tubeless. When you first buy this bike, you can go to the shop and tell them to just set it up with tubes if you want. But I never have ridden tubeless before, so I decided to try out tubeless. Overall, not really a big fan for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but if you want to hear me complain about tubeless tires, let me know in the comments below and I'll make that video for you. And the tires are Giant's Gavia AC1, something like that. I call them the Gaviria, if you know the Sprinter. But they are not the best tires. Puncture wise, they're really, really good, but speed wise, not that great. I have probably over 3,000 miles. I've only flatted once on tubeless. We'll see how it is, but I'm going to switch them out for the GP 5000s when I start racing in a month or so. So yeah, I was also having some issues with the valve sticking on the tubeless. It's another reason why I'm not a huge fan of tubeless, but just put some clinchers on and you'll be good to go, or tubes in, you'll be good to go. Another issue I was having is when you do a wet ride, if it's raining, water does get inside these rims, which is common with carbon rims. But after a ride or two, the water usually just spills out as they're spinning a little bit more. But that's something to, be aware of if you are going to be riding outside in the wet rain. The rims do get a bit of water inside, and it's hard to get it out without just, riding it out. And here is a hub test, so you can hear what the hub sounds like. So I don't know, some people like to hear the hub, so just thought I'd throw that in there. Again, nothing special, but it is what it is. Pretty good. They roll super well, stiff, get the job done. You could definitely definitely win a race on these bad boys. All right, so why didn't I go with disc brakes? And I know this was kind of controversial in my last video, and I probably should make a whole video discussing just this topic, but I'm pretty sure I said rim brakes are way better, which they are. And there's a couple things to be said here. And I know the industry is totally pushing disc brakes for the future, yada, yada, yada. And it's actually kind of sad how most manufacturers now are not even making a rim brake road bike version. It doesn't exist. Giant is one of the few that actually still make a rim brake bike. And what I want to say here is when deciding on what bike to buy, you need to look at your particular instance. Where do you live? What type of riding do you do? What type of weather are you riding in? What are your goals, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, you have to decide what is the best bike to buy. Should you buy a rim brake or should you buy a disc brake? Now, if you are riding in wet weather all the time, let's back up for a second. If you're on a mountain bike, get disc brakes. If you're going to be on a gravel bike, I'd say 80% of the time, get disc brakes. If you are going to be doing cyclocross, 100% get disc brakes. On a road bike, it's not so simple. You have to decide where you live. So for me, I'm in Florida and it's flat. Like you don't even get 1,000 feet of elevation if you do 100 miles. So disc brakes are pretty much just going to slow me down. I don't really need to use my brakes. I don't even need to use my rim brakes really. I can just, use the wind to slow me down. I don't need disc brakes for where I live. 90% of my rides, probably even 95%, are in dry conditions. If it's super wet out, I can just ride inside. I'm not too worried about that. And the rare instance where I do get caught in the rain, again, I'm on flat terrain where it's not that difficult to stop. I just have to, plan to brake a couple seconds beforehand so my rims can dry out from, the wet weather. And in races, you really want to be going as fast as possible and using your brakes as little as possible. So you need to take that in consideration as well. So the times I do go into mountains and race in mountains, 99% of the time it's dry and I'm not flying down descents in the pouring rain. And even if it was pouring rain, I would not feel comfortable flying down descents with disc brakes. It just because you have disc brakes does not make you able to stop faster necessarily. You have to realize that it's all about traction mostly. Like on a wider tire, you're going to have more traction to stop, to slow down. So I never really had a problem stopping on rim brakes. I've never once said, man, I wish these brakes stopped better, except maybe one time in rainy conditions. That's about it. So overall, you have to look at the cost benefit. And if you go on Giant's website, you can see the bike I bought retails for $35. And just if you want to upgrade to disc brakes, so you get the disc wheel and the hydraulic Shimano brakes, you have to add $1,100. So to get a heavier bike that, doesn't go as fast because it's heavier, and I'm going to use that benefit, maybe 5 days of the year, maybe 10 if we're pushing it. And I also have to pay another $1,100 to get that benefit. To me, it just doesn't make sense where, having rim brakes and having a lighter bike that's going to be better 95 to 98% of the time, to me, that makes more sense. So that's why I went with rim brakes. And if you think I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want me to make a whole video discussing this topic, which I'd be happy to do, and I think it's worthwhile, I'd be happy to talk about that as well. So that's about the brakes. They work great and super easy to maintain is another thing. So that's why I went with rim. So the frame. Honestly, love this frame. It's honestly the best frame ever that I've ridden personally. If you don't know the backstory behind this, I actually rented a TCR when I was on vacation one year and just absolutely loved how stiff this frame was. And that's basically why I decided to go with this. I knew the next bike I wanted to buy was going to be a TCR, so that's what I did. These decals, they're slightly raised, so you can actually like feel the letters, but you can't really like pick the letters off. So they're not going to come off, but they are slightly raised. So I'm not sure how those are put on there, but it's like a matte finish with, you know, those raised decals. Why didn't I go with a aero bike? And again, this is what the marketing is telling me I need. I need an aero bike because it's faster. And I'm not trying to be all hipster and be like, yeah, I don't want an aero bike because that's what everyone else has. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, personally, I look at what I do. So I know an aero bike from working in a shop are a pain to work on. Everything is internally routed, and it's such a pain if you have to change cables. You have to route it through the handlebars, and it just doesn't. The benefit of your cables being inside the handlebars and not showing any housing versus being outside, speed-wise, doesn't really matter that much. Doesn't really matter that much. So that's why I wanted the TCR. It's just super clean, simple, just a normal bike that's going to be just as fast. Here's I'm showing you the little cable guide at the bottom. I really like this because it's a, you know, it's super hard to see, but it's a tiny hole that you can get the cables out of, which is really nice to keep all that, you know, garbage from the road, the water out of your frame. My tarmac had a giant hole down there, so it just get caked with sand and dirt and stuff. So really a big fan of that cable. These cables, you know, all internally routed, but you know, I don't have to route them through the handlebars, so that's really nice. And it's easy to work on, as I said, and the frame is, you know, good enough to win a race in a sprint for sure. If you're a sprinter, this would be a fine bike for you, and it's light for the climbs as well. So the last thing I want to cover in this video is just some miscellaneous parts that I changed out. So this saddle I actually have had for a while. It's a Specialized Toupee. I prefer it, so I put that on this bike, and it's also red, which goes with the color theme. This is a proprietary TCR seat post, which again, not always a fan of proprietary stuff because personally, I just want to, if something breaks and I'm in a pinch, I just want to be able to walk into any bike shop in the whole world and be like, hey, I need a 27.2 seat post. Mine's snapped in a crash. But with this bike and with, you know, pretty much every other bike in 2020, not going to be able to do that. So you take what you can get, basically. The bars, these are the bars that came on the bike. They are a 44 width, which I ride 42s, so I swapped them out. But I actually do prefer the bars that came with the bike, the feel of them. The top is it's a little bit flat, so you can like rest your forearms on it, and the drops actually feel really good. They're like thicker, basically. The saddle, as you're seeing now, is actually not bad. I actually didn't think I would like it as much, but I rode it for a couple weeks on the tarmac when I was out traveling, and it's actually pretty grippy. So my toupee is like kind of, you can slide around on it and not move. You can slide around on it, where this Contact SL Giant saddle that came on the bike is pretty grippy. So yeah, once you like sit down, you're in that position and you can like push off kind of. And then you have to like stand up to move, basically. I don't know how long that grippiness is going to last, but that is something to be aware of if you like a grippy saddle or not. The fact that this doesn't have an inner channel makes it a pain to switch over to different seat posts. It has like one little hole that never really lines up properly. So something to be aware of if you're switching it over to different seat posts. It can be kind of a pain. But overall, that's the couple things I changed. The stem I swapped out for a 100 mil. It comes with a 110, but again, that's personal preference based on your fit. All right, and the very last thing we're going to cover very quickly is the components. So it comes with Shimano Ultegra. The cassette is an 11 through 30, and the front chainring comes with a 52-36. You'll notice on mine it says 50-34, and that was just a mix-up that I just realized today as I'm making this video. When they sent me the new power meter, I guess they sent me a 50-34. So I'm working with Giant right now to try to get my 52-36 back. But it does come with a 52-36 and 11 through 30 in the back cassette, 11 speed. This is my first time with a Shimano road bike. Think it's fine. Brakes work good. Shifts great. So overall, really happy with the components. And other than that, I think that's about it. So this took me a while to make, so I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and share this video with a friend that's interested in the TCR or looking to buy a new bike. I hope I had some good points in here. Hopefully this video helped you. And if you have any other questions like the old video, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll reply to every single comment that's down there. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.